away. We're about 27 likes away. Okay. Ameya, let's talk about the Ziyech situation a little bit. I know it's a bit of a hot topic, and I'm Ziyech FC. Everyone knows that. This is my channel, so we're going to talk about HAKIM ZIYECH. That's what we're going to do. I love HAKIM ZIYECH. Everyone knows that, but I want to try and keep it a buck now. I want to try and be as fair as possible. Kishan knows that. He always tries to keep me on the check. Like, hey, I know you like him, but let's be honest here. Okay. He's coincidentally, with all these injuries, he's got some game time. Newcastle was the first proper one, I feel, in recent time. Obviously, he got game time previously as well against Malmo and the likes, and Aston Villa. He just wasn't good in those games. Against Newcastle, this is my fair assessment. I want to see what you have to say, Ameya. He did show up for the ball a lot more. He dropped into midfield. He showed up for the ball a lot, as opposed to maybe some other players. However, showing up for the ball, tick. What you do with the ball is also important. Getting dispossessed, mistimed passes, pressing was awful. Not as a unit. It just runs everywhere. And shooting just for the sake of shooting. Like, shoot when you know there's a proper opportunity to get something out of it.
And miss that on the right, cut in, left foot ball in. That's not worked for him since Sheffield United last season. Yes.
Exactly. But you know what the funny thing is, that Newcastle game, especially the first half, or up until he got substituted, because after he got substituted, coincidentally enough, we then started banging the goals. And I'm not saying that was because of Ziyech, but as Kishan was saying it last week as well, up until he got substituted, he was probably our biggest threat of getting a goal. Funnily enough, even with all the things that he wasn't doing, he was probably the one that looked like half a chance of getting a goal because of him showing up for the ball. Against Malmo, yes, great movement, great tracking, watching the runs, getting into that position, putting that goal in. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, it was just a tap-in. Yeah, it was just a tap-in, but you had to work to get into that position to put that ball away. Kudos to Callum Hudson-Odoi for providing that assist, and also kudos to Kai Havertz to slide that ball through to Callum. But that entire match, once again, Ameya, pressing was awful, dispossessed, passing was awful. Yeah, you can say 5 key passes. Watch the match. Don't look at the stats. Tell me which 5 key passes are we talking about? Were they genuinely big time opportunities? My 2 big time opportunities against Malmo was Ruben Loftus-Cheek providing the balls for Kai Havertz twice. One where he slid in a ball in between 3 defenders and he put Kai through first half, and Kai tried to dink it, trying to be too cute, and didn't do it. Second half, similarly, Ruben Loftus-Cheek puts the ball through. Kai tries to take too many touches to go around the keeper and didn't do it. Besides that, I don't remember Ziyech's key passes. So this is where I have the issues with stats. Was it really a key pass that opened up and was open for a goal? I mean, what do you have to say, Ameya, about Ziyech's recent performances?
I think, first up, about talking about Ziyech, I still think that he's sort of a confidence player. I mean, most of the guys who have that ability, like, we know that he's got it in his locker to, cut in and provide those accurate balls to, put in some very delicious crosses or to break the opposition line. We know that he's got that in his locker. The issue is that, I mean, we did see it for a couple of games last season. Okay, Kishan, I can see you laughing there. So we know that he's...
Ignore him, bro.
So we know that he can do it. The issue is he can't do it consistently enough. And in the Premier League, you get punished every time you lose the ball. And, with Ziyech, he attempts it so many times. And, with the number of times that he attempts it, at least a couple of them will probably go where he intended it to go, but not all of them do, right? And so it does look like he loses the ball all too often, and sometimes what he's doing doesn't come off. And in the other leagues, especially like for example the Eredivisie, maybe you might not get punished, right, because the other team will also try such ambitious stuff. But in the Premier League, when you're facing teams that just want to point out of the game, then they're definitely gonna pounce on every single mistake. And I think that Ziyech sometimes loses the ball, and not sometimes, most of the times rather loses the ball, unfortunately, and which is why
let's be honest, he gets dispossessed a lot. He does get dispossessed a lot.
Exactly, but he's always been that type of player. I think, even at Ajax, even in the Champions League, where he was respected so much.
Ajax?
Yeah, I mean, every time you go look at the possession, like the number of times that he's been dispossessed or possession lost, as they call it, that's a particular statistic, and it's always the highest in the team for Ajax. And so this is why you see it. If this is why compilations are so misleading, because he attempts the same thing 100 times and comes off 5 or 6 times, and those 5 or 6 times it looks incredible, but no one talks about the other 94 times.
95 times.
Exactly, and that's what's happening right now.
Before, when he came to Chelsea, I was watching that comp. I saw on YouTube, and it's called "This is what 99 passing looks like." HAKIM ZIYECH, Every single time he's got that ball on that right, he does that left foot, and then you got Quincy Promes there, or Donny van de Beek there, someone like that. Tagliafico as well. So when we were linked with him as well, so it was insane. But this is my point on him, and I told you last week I've pretty much tapped out on the guy, and the chance when I will give him another chance is if we change systems. But all I'm saying currently is in this system, I've seen way too much of him to know what he brings, and like in this system, I just don't think he's it. And I'll go back to this. Currently, we have Lukaku out, Werner out, Pulisic out, Mount out, really. Those Pulisic and Mount coming back in, but they're out. They weren't in contention to start this game, and I still wanted to see Ross Barkley start over Ziyech. And for me, that kind of says it all. So when these 4 come back, this guy shouldn't be getting a shout at all, in my opinion, because he's just not been it. Like when you look at someone like Hudson-Odoi, he's still somewhat taking his chance, like we were speaking about, to be in contention where someone has to kind of knock him off his place. So I don't think someone like a Timo comes in straight away. But this is the thing with Ziyech. Has he done enough to like guarantee even like a pity minutes at this point right now? It seems like
to be honest, he hasn't. And I go back to the point that you said, the system, this formation, the system really hurts him. But we shouldn't be sitting here and changing a system just for one player. But going back to your point, Ameya, the whole Ziyech situation, that compilation, the 5 chances looks great. We are just not that luxury team that can allow for Ziyech to hit 100 of those inverted crosses. We're just not that. I mean, that's where the situation lies. I want to ask you this, Ameya, and then I want to ask Kishan this as well. Marva saying, I don't know why Ziyech doesn't start yesterday. Barkley right wing. Not sure about that. Barkley was more central as opposed to
exactly. I was
right wing. I don't even think he was right wing. Callum was more right wing. Barkley was actually more of a 10. Callum and Havertz were more sort of up front in the front too. I want to ask you, and I know Kishan's point on it, he was happy to see at least Barkley. It was a bit of a surprise for me. For me, I wasn't even happy or anything. I probably expected Ziyech, but then I was like, I could understand why Barkley's starting, because let's be honest, Tuchel probably is not completely sold with Ziyech. But Ameya, were you somewhat surprised that Barkley started ahead of Ziyech? What message does it give to Ziyech? Ziyech has only played against Newcastle and Malmo recently, but he's been substituted off, so it shouldn't even be about fatigue. So what's your thoughts about that situation?
Yeah, it was a little surprising, honestly. I didn't expect Barkley to start at all. That was pretty much a shock for me. I thought Loftus-Cheek would start actually, but that's something different altogether. But Barkley starting was very surprising. Ziyech, although to be honest, I sort of expected him not to start this one, and I'm going to be honest. I thought that he wasn't good enough, and in our previous couple of games, so I still thought he might get some minutes yesterday. But I think because because of the situation we were in yesterday, I think that Thomas Tuchel decided to bring on Mount and Pulisic after the Loftus-Cheek substitution. So I think with Ziyech, I'm with Kishan on this one. Unfortunately, I think as long as we keep this system, I just don't see any way he fits in, especially with Gallagher knocking on the door with the performances that he's putting in for Crystal Palace next season. It's a no-brainer really to replace Ziyech next season.
Gallagher is a shoe-in now. He's banging.
Bro, we
I
talked
actually
about
took
him. We talked about him
last week. Yeah.
Exactly. So,
And
with
he's gone and
players
got
like
another
that,
one, miss.
I just think exactly. So, I mean, it was a little bit lucky, to be fair, to look at deflection, but I still think that, a great goal nonetheless. And he's
You
been
got to
one of
make your own
Palace's
luck, right? You got to make your own luck.
Exactly.
You got to shoot. You got to shoot. That's what
Exactly,
you
and
gotta
he's
do.
been
Yep.
one of Palace's best players this season. So, when you've got players like that, when you've got Harvey Bale on the bench, who's also left-footed, by the way, who wants to break into the first team, who's highly valued by Thomas Tuchel, I just don't see any way Ziyech stays. I mean, he was brought in to be that experienced winger because, you look at all our other players, Pulisic, Hudson-Odoi, Mount Havertz, none of them are in their prime. They're all 22 or below. And you've got Ziyech, who's now 27, or he's 27, right? Or 28. I don't know, one of those
I
two.
think it's 28. Yeah,
Exactly.
28.
So this should
Yeah.
be his literal prime, and
But
if
it's
he
prime.
can't get in ahead of 20-year-old kids who are nowhere near their prime, then I think it's time to go. Unfortunately, I especially at Chelsea, which is one of the most ruthless clubs in the world, really, not even in the Premier League, in the world. I just think that it's too far gone for him, honestly.
Aka saying, by the way, I've actually got Conor Gallagher in my fantasy Premier League, ladies and gentlemen. It's high time. He needs to be there at 5.7.
7, yeah.
Yeah,
man, that's a
really
bug.
good. Ameya, one more thing.